Yeah, I like the movie.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jashodanandanam Brajajanandana Jamunati Ravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jashodanandanam Brajajanandana Jamunati Ravanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Rama Rama Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for coming. Normally, Kirtan Ishwar would be giving class on Friday, but we switched for this week. So today we'll be continuing reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 1, entitled The Activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. And we'll be covering text 38 today. Now in here, it kind of seemed like you could do what do you call it? That you could actually do it in Chanda, but it's more like a prose here. So I'm gonna just read through it and then we'll do a word for word. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashta Preshwa Bhadrisho Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Okay, text 38. Para Devata Prasadadhigatatma Pratyava Marshinanu Pravrittebhyaha Putrebhya imang yathadayang vibhajya bhukta bhogam cha mahishim mrittakameva saha maha vibhutim apaya swayam nihita nirvedo hridigrihita hari viharana nubhavo bhagavato naradasya padavim punar evanusasara. Word for word. Paradevata of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prasada by the mercy. Adhikata obtained. Atma pratyavamarshana by self-realization. Anupravrittebhya who exactly follow his path. Putrebhya unto his sons. Imam this earth. Ithadayam exactly according to the inheritance. Vibhajya dividing. Bhukta bhogam whom he enjoyed in so many ways. Cha also. Maheshim the queen. Mritakameva exactly like a dead body. Saha with Mahavibhutim, great opulence, Apahaya, giving up, Swayam, himself, Nihita, perfectly taken to, Nirvidaha, renunciation, Hridi, in the heart, Rihita, accepted, Hari, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vihara, pastimes, Anubhava, in such an attitude, Bhagavataha, of the great saintly person, Naradasya, of Saint Narada, Padavim, position, Punaha, again, Eva, certainly, Anusasara, began to follow. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Srila Ki Jai. By the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maharaja Priyavrata reawakened to his senses. He divided all his earthly possessions among his obedient sons. He gave up everything, including his wife, with whom he had enjoyed so much sense gratification, and his great and opulent kingdom, and he completely renounced all attachment. His heart, having been cleansed, became a place of pastimes for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, he was able to return to the path of Krishna consciousness, spiritual life, and resume the position he had attained by the grace of the great Saint Narada. Now, this is a decently long purport, so I think we'll just go straight to the purport. Purport. As enunciated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shishashtakam, Chitto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. As soon as one's heart is cleansed, the blazing fire of material existence is immediately extinguished. Our hearts are meant for the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This means that one should be fully Krishna conscious, thinking of Krishna as he himself advises. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mang namaskuru. This should be our only business. One whose heart is not clean cannot think of the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Lord. But if one can once again place the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his heart, he very easily becomes qualified to renounce material attachment. Mayavadi philosophers, yogis, and jnanis try to give up this material world simply by saying, Brahma satyam jagan mithya. This world is false. There is no use of it. Let us take to Brahman. Such theoretical knowledge will not help us. If we believe that Brahman is the real truth, we have to place within our heart the lotus feet of Shri Krishna. As Maharaja Ambarisha said, Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo. One has to fix the lotus feet of the Lord within his heart. Then he gets the strength to be freed from the material entanglement. Maharaja Priyavrata was able to give up his opulent kingdom, and he also gave up the association of his beautiful wife, as if she were a dead body. However beautiful one's wife and however attractive her bodily features, one is no longer interested in her when her body is dead. We praise a beautiful woman for her body, but that same body, when bereft of a spirit soul, is no longer interesting to any lusty man. Maharaja Priyavrata was so strong by the grace of the Lord that even though his beautiful wife was alive, he could give up her association exactly like one who is forced to give up the association of a dead wife. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Nadhanam najanam na sundarim gavidam va jagdishakam maye mama janmani jamani ishware bhavatar bhaktir ahaitu ki tvai. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. For one who desires to advance in spiritual life, attachment to material opulence and attachment to a beautiful wife are two great impediments. Such attachments are condemned even more than suicide. Therefore, anyone desiring to cross beyond the material nations must, by the grace of Krishna, be freed from attachment to women and money. When Maharaja Priyavrata became completely free from these attachments, he could again peacefully follow the principles instructed by the great sage Narada. Om Agyanadhamrandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshu Amritamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swabhrantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandha Jagatpate Gopasha Gopaka Kanta Vraha Kanta Namoste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishvanu Sudrevi Panamami Hare Pre Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nevasesha Shonivari Pashatire Shtarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so today's verse once more. By the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maharaja Priyavrata reawakened to his senses. He divided all his earthly possessions among his obedient sons. He gave up everything, including his wife, with whom he had enjoyed so much sense gratification, and his great and opulent kingdom, and he completely renounced all attachment. His heart, having been cleansed, became a place of pastime for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, he was able to return to the path of Krishna consciousness, spiritual life, and resume the position he had attained by the grace of the great Saint Narada. So, we're kind of starting to wrap things up now. Previously, Maharaja Priyavrata took on and executed the desires of Lord Brahma as well as his own father to, get married and to be a king and rule. And so in yesterday's, or not yesterday's, but the previous verse that we had went through, Maharaj Priyavrata says, "Alas, how condemned I have become because of my sense gratification. I have now fallen into material enjoyment, which is exactly like a covered well. I have had enough. I am not going to enjoy anymore. Just see how I have become like a dancing monkey in the hands of my wife. Because of this, I am condemned." So we see that Maharaj Priyavrata, he sees himself as fallen. He's pretty much saying, I've been in a fallen state. You know, I've taken the worldly affairs. You know, previously he was practically going the sannyasi route by following Narada Muni's instructions. And now he thinks, you know, I was going from this to becoming a grahasta, and you know, I'm married, I'm taking on kingly position. Now I'm like in the material world, and I've absorbed myself in that. And he's regretting this. And so he says, now I've had enough. It's time to get over this. So similarly, it may be that from time to time we find ourselves in some sort of a slump where we're not acting in a Krishna conscious way, maybe falling down altogether for some period of time. However, you know, it could be from so many different things. Sometimes we get caught up in family life too much, or we get caught up with work, we get lazy, we get caught up in our minds. Do any of you have any other examples of things that we may get too caught up in? Social media, okay, that's one. Any others? Any other takers? Okay.
Bad association.
Bad association. Gossip. So
You don't need to argue.
hanging out with him. So we get ourselves caught up in so many of these things. So much so that we start to divert our attention for some time. But at some point, we should decide that we've had enough and turn things around, like Maharaja Priyavrata did. Because it's common. Most of us don't just right away surrender everything and we're 100% Krishna conscious for the rest of eternity. Oftentimes, we start and then we fall back a little bit, and then we go a little bit further and we fall back a little bit. Some days we're more Krishna conscious than other days. Some months we're more Krishna conscious than other months. But we had to keep picking ourselves up over and over and not allow ourselves to stay in that. Because all of these temporary facilities and situations that we find ourselves in have a due date. They had a start date and they have a due date. And by allowing ourselves to get caught up in them, we ultimately gain nothing in return. Nothing beneficial, at least. Because who likes to use their energy with no returns? You know, most people think that's crazy. If, for example, I'm working a difficult job, you know, I'm spending time on it, I'm using a lot of energy, I'm sweating, I'm using all my time, my mind's caught up on how to do this job, but I don't get paid, I don't get food, I don't get shelter, I don't get anything from doing this job. You would call me crazy because I'm not getting anything from working so hard and so uselessly when I'm getting nothing in return. So in a similar way, we form our own mental slavery. We choose to be in that because we end up getting caught too much in here. Because in reality, when you dissect it, where's the past? Can you go to the past? Are you able to physically go to the past? No. Exactly. The past is gone. It remains in your head.
Right.
So how about your future? Similarly, your future only plays out in your head. So ultimately, all these things only exist within your head. This is the only place it has real existence. But the real reality is this ever-present, continuous moment that we're constantly going through. What happened then's already passed. What's yet to happen, we don't know for certain. Only Krishna knows. Yeah, we spend so much of our time in this non-existent, and it's not real. And I'm not saying don't think of the past or the future, but when you spend all your time in that which isn't, you lose so much of your time. So much of your time. Oftentimes, we're caught up thinking about what we did in the past. You know, man, I shouldn't have done that, or man, that was a great time. And you're just thinking about all these different things. Or you're thinking about the future and man, how am I going to make more money? How am I going to be able to do this in my life, go over here in my life? And we spend our time jumping from here to there, and we're like hardly ever right here. We just keep jumping between our past and our future, our past and our future. But we end up doing this and spending all our time and our energy, and we lose it. And if you did something wrong in the past, do what you can to grow from it now, and you'll build a better past. Because what you're doing now is going to become the past. So you could build a better past. And if you want a better future, you want something in your future, it still depends on what you do right now. So everything is dependent on how you spend this moment. So we shouldn't unnecessarily waste our time and our energy on just staying within our mind. This human form lasts, generally speaking, if you're lucky, around 100 years. Around 100 years. However, I looked into the global life expectancy, and the global life expectancy for someone is between 72 to 73 years old. Then I looked up the premature death percentage, and in 2019, there were 51.7% premature deaths. So 51%, half of those people didn't even make it to the general life expectancy of someone in the world. Death is right there, and oftentimes we forget about it. Just like,
Excuse me, I just read where when you add in the abortions, that makes it way less number for life extension.
that's something I didn't even consider.
Yeah, I read it.
I like that. Okay, that just adds on to it more. So you never really know how much time you have, and death is always right there. We forget. It's like, I'm remembering this correctly before I say it, but King Yudhishthira was asked like, what's the most amazing thing? And we've heard this story so much times, and he pretty much said that everybody's carrying on their life as if they're not going to die. They see everyone is dying around them, and if you look around, everything is dying around you, but people aren't paying attention to that. They're living like they have another moment. They're living like they have another day. None of that's promised to us. Parikshit Maharaj was told that he had 7 days to live. We don't even know if we have 7 seconds to live. We see everything dying constantly. We see plants dying on a constant, as seasons change or as it gets hotter, or not enough watering. We see animals on the side of the road that got hit by a car. We see younger people that took their own lives or got in an accident. We have family members, generally speaking, that somehow or other died. So we see death all the time, but we try pushing that away. We try pushing that away as if that's never going to happen. That's something that we shouldn't focus on right now. I'll focus when I'm older. But death doesn't wait for you to be older. He doesn't judge if you're young or you're old. He doesn't judge if you're black or you're white, if you're Christian, Muslim, or Hindu. He doesn't judge on anything. Death is for everyone. Everyone, every species, every living entity with a material body, death is there. And death is, just like Paramatma follows you in your heart, death is also following you within the material body, because at every second that passed, your body is dying. We think that death just suddenly happens, but actually every second you're dying. I mean, even your cells are constantly dying and renewing, dying and renewing. But this body's getting older and older, and it's just waiting for death at the end. So we should really consider what is worth spending our time and attention on. Yes.
Should I wait to ask you something?
If you got something you want to ask,
I
you
was
can
gonna say,
do
what about the soul? What about the nature of the soul? Is the soul like aging too, or is it because the soul is eternal?
This is
What is the soul doing?
this is actually nicely answered in the Bhagavad Gita,
Yes.
where it is stated that for the soul there is neither birth nor death. He does not come into being, he has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So for the soul, there's birth nor death. So the soul never ages. It is eternal. Just like Krishna is eternal, we're also eternal. We've always existed and will always exist. So we don't age or we don't die with the body. That all has to do with the body. So we should consider what's worth spending our time and attention on. Most of the things that we make a big deal out of are not that big of a deal in the scope of eternity. When you zoom out a little bit, oftentimes we focus on this, but we don't see the full picture, and we make a big deal out of it. The family situation you're absorbed in will fade. You've had so many families, but now likely in this life, none of them are with you right now. And if they are, you don't know. You can't say, this was my mother, this was my father, and I'm with them now, and this is my new family, and this was my other family from my previous life. No, none of them are with you now. Likely. And that business that you're so absorbed on, they're not going to wait for your next birth to pay you that paycheck that you missed because you died before they had a chance to give that to you. The drama that seems so important now won't even be important oftentimes even within a month. So we get so absorbed in all this stuff that in ultimate reality it's going to be gone. Everything that you think is your ultimate reality is going to fade away. It's going to drip out of your hand, essentially. The only reality, as we often say, the only ultimate truth, the supreme ultimate truth is Krishna, because he exists in the beginning, the middle, and the end. Whereas all these material things didn't have an existence in the beginning, came into being, and they have an end. So they may be true for the moment, but they're only relatively true. They're only relative to the time that you exist. They're not the ultimate truth. The only ultimate truth is Krishna, because he exists in the beginning and he exists in the end through it all. So Maharaj Priyavrata, he's seeing the temporal nature of his situation. He's realizing, I'm in this position where I'm getting absorbed in kingly affairs, taking charge of the world. It's a pretty big task. I don't think most of us would be qualified for that. And also he has a family, which if you're a good father and a good husband, you're acting in that family, you're taking care of people, you're instructing your children, you're absorbed in that in one extent or another. And so he sees himself absorbed in this, or at least he feels himself to be absorbed in this. So he decides that it's time, and he gave everything in his possession to his obedient sons, and he gave up everything, including his wife. So having done so, it's mentioned that his heart was cleansed, and it became a place for the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as Prabhupada mentions, our hearts are meant for the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also mentions that this should be our only business as well. So our heart has space for it to fill things in it. However, often we fill it with so many different things that don't give us complete satisfaction. You ask a general person, the things they love in their life, and they'll mention so many different things, even if their family, of course, oftentimes, their friends, this sweet sentiment. But then, it also gets to, I love my truck, I love pizza, they just start naming all these different things that they love in their life. So they shove a lot of stuff in their heart. This is what's important to me. This is what makes me mean. This is what I love in my life. But the only thing and the only person that is going to complete our heart and treat it well is Krishna. If I give my heart to pretty much anyone in some way or form, I'm going to be hurt. And it's not that they're trying to hurt me, but naturally we hurt each other. It's not that we necessarily go our way and we're like, you know what, I just want to hurt you today or something. But maybe like in a relationship, you forget it's your anniversary, big but something like that could happen, and the other person gets hurt because, like, how could you forget something so important? Or you say something to someone maybe as a joke, but you didn't realize that they were self-conscious like that. You didn't know that that was something that they would take very personal, which oftentimes I think we do and don't realize it, or we do realize it at some point because they make it aware to us that, hey, that really hurt me. So oftentimes within a relationship here in the material world, we hurt each other, not on purpose, but we hurt each other. But Krishna, he loves us so deeply, and he'll treat our hearts too, so tenderly, so lovingly. He's already there as Paramatma, but we keep stacking all this junk around him and like make a pile around him. And I don't know, but have any of y'all been to a home or seen one that's like cluttered and there's just like piles of trash or just junk or all kind, whatever it may be, but you just go to someone's house, maybe it was your own house even, just yeah. So I've been to a few houses, and when I was little, I used to just have piles of stuff like, oh yeah, this is where I keep all this is where I keep all that, just piles of stuff. And oftentimes these people don't even know what's under all these piles that they have. So we should cleanse our hearts and make it a comfortable home for Krishna to enact his pastimes within our heart. He's already there, but we're piling stuff on him. So we should clear it up. We should make it a nice place, give him a comfortable home. So as this Cheto Darpana verse is mentioned from the Shashashtakam, I'll read the full translation of the verse. Say that, glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtana movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Doesn't that sound so nice? So we can cleanse this heart through chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Both individually through doing japa and congregationally through doing Sankirtana together. So as Prabhupada mentioned in his purport today, if one can once again place the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his heart, he very easily becomes qualified to renounce material attachment. So oftentimes, there are people that they're not exactly God conscious and they try to renounce the material world. But doing so without Krishna is next to impossible. It's very difficult because there's so many traps. You know, this is his external energy, and you know he's already supremely powerful. So what to mention any of his energy? So external energy, it gets us. So these people, you know, they meditate for a long time. They try to give up so many different things in their life. But oftentimes we see that at some point they will fall down. If in this life, you know, sometimes they end up trying to renounce everything. But then they start trying to get some money in for being like a great yogi or sage or meditator, or they start hooking up with people that look up to them, or sometimes we even see that they end up on drugs at some point. Or let's say that they do succeed and they go to the Brahma Jyoti of Krishna, you know, they're in this like oneness and all that. But because the soul is part of Krishna, and Krishna is a personality, that means the soul is also a personality. And personalities have activities. So when we're not acting in a personal way, we're not enacting any activities, we get bored. And eventually we want to act again, for lack of better terms. So you're in this Brahma Jyoti and you have a lack of sense perception. You know, it's not really there. You're kind of just nothing. So even if there is a bunch of people around you, it's not like you're interacting with them like, oh, hey, what's up? Like, how are you doing in this nothingness? I'm doing great. I'm feeling peaceful. No. So at some point, after being at Brahma Jyoti for however long, they could be in there for a long time, they will fall back down eventually to the material world because they haven't learned to love and have a relationship with Krishna. They haven't learned how to act in their natural order. You know, we're part of Krishna. We have a relationship. There's something we do in that relationship. So when you're not acting in that, you're going to keep falling down no matter what till you reestablish that loving relationship. No matter how great of a personality you think you are or seem to be. So we see that after putting the focus back to being centered around Krishna, Maharaja Priyavrata could give up the association of his wife exactly like one who is forced to give up association of a dead wife. Now, for one who has Krishna, he has everything. Mundane attractions fade like dead bodies. Jewels become nothing more than rocks on the ground. And gold becomes nothing more than a piece of metal like aluminum foil. It becomes it's nothing. It has no comparison. So Mahaprabhu, he came to give us everything. He started the Sankirtan movement of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And these names are not different than the Lord himself, because the Lord is absolute. So the Lord and his name are non-different. And he started this movement. And by chanting these names, which are God himself, it cleanses our heart and it clears our mind in such a way that it uncovers our lost love for Krishna. It's already there. The soul has love for Krishna. That can't be taken away. The only thing is it could be covered over. But love for Krishna isn't to be gained from anyone or anything. It's not that I go and, hey, you got love for Krishna, I'll give you $50. Could you sell it to me? It's not like that. It's within you. But it has to be uncovered. And that process has been given through Mahaprabhu and people down his line, all the way Srila Prabhupada and his disciples that are giving us that same, very same thing to uncover that love that we've lost. So actually Mahaprabhu is giving us Krishna. He becomes our possession. Because by reawakening this love, we submit ourselves to Krishna. But in turn, he wants to submit himself to us. Because that's how love works. You know, just like Arjuna, he became the charioteer for Arjuna. We're talking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead here. And oftentimes in a lot of different practices, God is not someone that you make your servant in that way. I mean, they still treat him like a servant, like, hey, God, like, I need this, I need that. But to be like having God like right there, like, hey, like, you know, right next to your feet, below you, anything like that, that's practically heresy in their eyes. But out of love, he becomes a charioteer for Arjuna. Out of love, he's the son of Mother Yashoda. Out of love, he washes the feet of Sudama. This is love. Krishna is beyond just the idea of, look at me, I'm the greatest personality there is. And, you know, that's true, that's there, and he tells us that to help us attract ourselves to him. But there's something beyond that. He likes when we're more like equals. He likes to have a loving relationship. And our relationship could only really be had between equals when it's in an intimate way. You don't go up to your boss, unless you're friends, of course, but you don't go up to your boss and hug him and, you know, wash his feet or things out of a loving sentiment. Oftentimes you wouldn't even do that in general. But Krishna, you know, he puts himself on our level. He decides out of love, I want to serve you. Just like you want to serve me, I want to serve you. What can I do for you? So this Maha Mantra literally gives us everything because it gives us Krishna. So we may have times where we fall into a slump. Most of us likely will fall into slumps from time to time. But it's our responsibility to find a way out. Whether that's praying, associating more with the devotees, do some service, preach. And oftentimes we may see that all we needed was just to have some nice attentive japa and to read. You know, when we don't do these two things, you know, basic Shravana Kirtana, we have a harder time with this material world, with our senses, everything. You know, we have it. Prabhupada mentions how this 16 rounds of ours is like a protection. When we chant these rounds, it's like a protection. If you're inattentively chanting them, you're not really protected. You're kind of just like ignoring Krishna. It's like you invite Krishna there, but you're just like on your phone, or, you know, you're doing your own thing, kind of ignoring him. Like, hey, Krishna, why don't you come over to hang out today? And then you just completely ignore him the rest of the time. when we chant attentively, which, sometimes we may do that. But it's like doing that. We're inviting him to dance on our tongue, but we're completely ignoring him by getting caught up in thoughts or doing things externally. So every once in a while, sometimes we need to just have some nice japa and some time to read. Also that a devotee association is very important. When we don't have devotee association, when we oftentimes become unenthused because, they help keep us in Krishna consciousness. If I'm out in the world and I talk to anybody, it's not like everybody's willing to talk about Krishna. It's not like I could tell them about the verse I just read that, this is what I was thinking about. This is the questions I was having about it. With devotees, we have that. And devotees, they care for our Krishna consciousness. So they try to help us in some way or another. So we don't need to waste our time and energy. We have these books that help give us the understanding of these traps we fall in, and oftentimes a solution to that, so that we may be aware and also may find a solution if we do fall into them anyway. The Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam talk about these traps. It talks about 3 modes of material nature. It tells you the qualities of it. What does one act like when they're in these modes? What kind of foods are in these modes? It tells us so many things, and it tells us how do we come out of that. So when we read these books, we're also kind of prepping ourselves for these traps that are laid out for us. We should become in such a way that we start to notice when we're falling in a certain way, and we try to fix that as soon as possible. We might not notice it for a while, but at some point we should get where we can notice it. And the more we practice that, the quicker we'll be able to notice when we start slipping up. So all in all, no matter your position, no matter your situation, bottom line is make Krishna the center. Put him as your number one priority in life. It doesn't necessarily mean giving up all these things around you unnecessarily, but it means giving up the mundane attachments to them. Engage everything you can in Krishna's service and avoid everything that you can as far as you're able to. Sometimes you may have to, and for whatever reason, if you're at work or at home or different things like that, but as far as possible, try to engage everything that you can in the Christian service and avoid that which you can't put in service. So I think as time where we'll open up for any questions or comments.
I have 2 friends that I love so much, but they are so rigid partly due to their upbringing in Christianity. And so I try to share Krishna with them, but they're so close to it. And it's hard because I understand where they're coming from. They've accepted Lord Jesus, and that's their God. So it's like they don't know about Krishna consciousness, and they don't want to know because they've come to believe that Lord Jesus is the supreme. And it's hard for me because, that's not what I believe. But I have compassion for them too, and I recognize that that's their path. So, I don't want to take that away from them. It's just, I have to kind of separate myself from my friendship with them a little bit so that I can stay true to my path. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so we may find, especially if we had friends before Krishna consciousness, or we make friends after Krishna consciousness in whatever way, that some people, they're going to be closed off to it.
Yeah.
And especially oftentimes if they're coming from a different faith, different practice. But if it's a bona fide faith, we should encourage them to follow that out to the best that they can. Our preaching, oftentimes if they're not open to it, could actually turn them off from it.
Absolutely.
So that's something to be very careful of.
Yeah.
But if you show good character, beautiful character, and you can still offer them prasadam, but when it comes to directly talking about some things, it causes more harm than not. Just like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that we shouldn't disturb such persons that aren't open to it, but we can engage them to whatever extent that we can. And sometimes that means that we shouldn't overly associate with them if it's just going to be some material friendship, because we can't really have that godly relationship. And sometimes you can still talk about God, but you don't have to go into deep philosophy. A lot of them, they're not going to be open to reincarnation. They're not going to be open to being vegetarian. They're not going to be open to a lot of different things, but you can still talk about God with them. God's great. He does this. Wow, can you believe God's glory? He's able to create thousands of trees out of this one seed. You can still talk about God and glorify God, but it doesn't mean that you have to get into deep philosophy until or unless they're open to it. Because in time, you may find that they may become a little more interested if they ask you. But to go out your way and say such things, it's difficult. I had that problem, and that's something that we should really be careful for, because any chances that were for them to be interested, we could close off by becoming pushy, just like some people from different faiths, they try to do towards us. They're like, that's devil's route, or you don't know the supreme truth. That's not God. How can God do this or that? We end up coming off like that to them. So it's something to be careful of and strategic, but we can still have a friendship out of compassion, give him prasadam, even talk about God, talk about his glories, but not necessarily go into all the details.
Thank you.
And of course, anybody else? I think Chandrika had something.
So when we serve Krishna and we see and we feel Krishna reciprocating with us, is that love? And in return, we become inspired and enthusiastic and want to serve more. So it's that reciprocation of love goes both ways in that way.
What exactly are you questioning?
So when we serve Krishna and we feel, that Krishna's reciprocating with us, like sometimes we get some personal connection that we feel that reciprocation.
Right.
And so is that love, and then that love in return, it makes us more inspired and more enthusiastic. So it's almost like a circle of love that continues between us and Krishna.
Yeah, that could definitely be an impetus for love. Just like when you notice that your parents, they oftentimes we don't notice it when we're younger, but when we're older, we realize how much our parents did for us. They were losing sleep. They were, they did our laundry. They, were cooking for us. They did so many different things for us, and we realize that love that they had. Sometimes that will increase our love. Another thing to consider though is all it really takes is for us to open our eyes to that, because Krishna is really doing everything for us. He loves us so dearly that he comes as Paramatma for one, so he's always next to you. He fulfills all your desires, practically speaking, whether it's mundane or spiritual. If you have material desire and joy in a certain way, maybe not this life, but in another life, you may get that desire fulfilled. Or, just as simple as he's the one allowing you to breathe right now. He's the one giving you the air. He's the one you can hold your breath so much so you pass out, but then automatically your body starts breathing again. It's not you doing the breathing, it's Krishna doing the breathing. Krishna says that he's the digestion in the stomach. He's the fire of digestion in the stomach. So it's not you digesting your food, it's him digesting it for you. It's not, you can't move your arms unless he allows you to do so. You could be paralyzed and you could desire to move your arms or your legs, but it doesn't mean you can. It's him that allows you to. It's him that gives you vision to see. It's him that's having someone bring you food when you need it. It's him giving you the roof over your head and the money you need to survive. Ultimately, Krishna's doing every single thing in our life, but we're not open to it. We don't see what he's doing. But when we realize, wow, Krishna is spending all his time and energy on me. He can just forget about me. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he doesn't have to focus on me. He has so many other millions and billions and innumerable living entities he can focus on. He doesn't have to focus on me. But he's doing every single thing for you since birth to death, since eternity. He's been doing everything. And not only that, but he's doing that for every single individual. So it's not even just us that he's doing that with. He's doing it all the way down to the insignificant ant or the germs. He's taking care of everything for everyone out of that pure love for us. I wanted to fulfill our desires. I wanted to see us happy. And he comes down so many times to try to awaken us to that love and what he does. Because when we don't know about him, we don't have these scriptures, we don't know what he's doing. The atheists, they think all this is just happening on its own. This world just came from a bing, boom, bam, and then all of a sudden, like, trees sprouted up, and it just so happens that as we breathe out carbon dioxide, they give us oxygen, and there's a rain cycle due to the sun. All these things, they just think, oh wow, it just happens on its own. But Krishna, he comes and he's like, hey, I'm doing that. Like, I'm the one behind all this. You're seeing all this, but I'm the one doing all this for you. I'm the one giving you this. And so he comes down so many times. We forget about it. We become demonic. But then he comes down, or he sends down somebody to teach us, hey, God's doing this for you. Or, hey, I'm the one doing this for you. He comes down so many times. Came down as Krishna, as Vamana, Nrsimha, so many incarnations, innumerable incarnations, and innumerable universes. And incarnations that we've never heard of or seen of or can't even imagine, just because he loves us so much and wants us to know that. So really it becomes a matter of our awareness of what he does. But to circle back to the main answer, of course, this could definitely be an impetus for love when you realize, he's spending all this time on me and on every single individual in all the universes and all existence, both material and spiritual. However, me, I may give him like 16 rounds of my time. I may read a little bit like once in a while, but like the rest of the time, who knows what I'm doing? I might not fully focus on him, but I only give him like 16 rounds of my time, and even then they might not be attentive rounds. But Krishna, he's giving me full attention. So when you look at it like that, it's like, wow, I should do more. He's doing so much for everyone, not just me. He's doing so much for me. So maybe, I should step it up at least a little bit. But in reality, I should figure out how to, if he's giving me 100% of his time and energy, I should figure out how to give myself as close to 100% at least of my energy. Okay, any last comments before we close off here? All right,
Thank you, great class.
Thank you. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.